Pete here now. Just over a year ago I did a review video of this, the four-wheel drive FTX Bugsta. At the time of that review I'd only had this for a week, so I was anticipating things that might go wrong with it, but now I've had it just over a year, I can tell you exactly what's good and bad about this. So I don't know if you call this a buggy or a truck. I think it's a truck really with a buggy body. It's the same as the FTX Carnage apart from the wheels and the body shell. Okay, let's do the good points first. First of all, price. This is currently in the UK £119. I actually got mine just under 100 at the time. It was a voucher or something at the shop. And they're selling this for £189 for the brushless one. I put a brushless set in that was about £60, so you're looking at 180 is what I paid to get this to be brushless. And I also put in a new servo, which was probably about £10, so roughly about the same price that they're selling the brushless version for. It's also good, the body seems pretty strong. I haven't broken that. I think the rounded shape of the beetle sort of helps this. I know these are very cheap to replace, so another good point with these is the spares are really cheap. So also good wheels I haven't broken. Plenty of tread left on the tyres, nice chunky tyres, quite soft, quite grippy, so yeah, they're pretty good. So also good, as mentioned in the first review, was the shocks. I haven't had to sort of open these up to put more oil in, which is pretty impressive in itself. So get nice soft suspension, sort of lands, jumps pretty well. So yeah, that is good. Okay, so also good is the supplied radio, this e-tronics Pulse, which I tend to use anyway. So yeah, thumbs up for that. Okay, it's also good, the general design of this four-wheel drive with these big tyres and soft suspension. It's sort of pretty capable off-road, and it's good at jumps. Did a demo of the GoPro slow-mo mode and did some jumps with this, and yeah, it did fare pretty well, but there is an issue with the off-roading on the loose surfaces, which I'll get onto. So getting on to the not so good points, as on the first video, I had the problem with the dog bone falling out. Basically, one of these drive cups is a bit too far in, and the dog bone came out, and one solution was to put a O-ring in at the gearbox end. I've actually put the universal drive shafts in at the back here, because they are pretty cheap. I think they're about £10 a pair, something like that. So that resolved that issue. Okay, so not long after the original review, it started making a crunching noise in the front here, and I took it all apart, and basically the bevel gears inside here had got mangled. I think the front gears on a four-wheel drive car always seems to take more of a hammering. I think it's with the braking, which seems to cause more strain than the accelerating. Now, I don't think they were expensive to replace those, but what I did actually, I just sort of did it temporarily and then it became permanent, was just to take out the centre prop shaft, and I took out the dog bones, or well, universal drive shafts at the front here, and just ran it as two-wheel drive, and I thought it worked pretty well like that. So I thought, well, it makes it less complicated. Still got plenty of grip with these tyres, so yeah, I've left it like that. Right, getting on to what I think is the biggest problem with this truck. I'll just take this wheel off so I can show you easier. Right, so you can see all this bathroom sealant on here. At the time of the first review I hadn't done this, and basically the big problem is that grit can find its way into where the spur gear and the pinion gear are inside here, because although they're covered, they're not sealed, and you know, grit has a habit of finding its way into these things, and that is a big issue. So I'd sealed this bit in here and on the other side also, and I was thinking that was all lovely and sealed, so I was out having a lovely time with this and thinking, oh yeah, this is pretty decent actually, and then it started making an awful noise at the back, and I will just show you the state of the pinion gear and the spur gear. They are completely mashed, and the reason being is the grip still finding its way in there. And what I hadn't realised is that there's also holes, if I can get this on the camera. Okay, if you look under there where the motor plate is, I don't know if you can see, but there's sealant in there now. And what I hadn't realised the first time around is that there's great gaps in the motor plate, and the dirt can all find its way under there. So that is another place you've got to seal up somehow. So this was very cheap to replace. I actually replaced this with a steel pinion gear, so only a few quid for the pair, so that's all fine. And that's all sealed up now as far as I know. But the problem being is now if you want to do some maintenance on this, this is all stuck, and so you've got to prise this apart, because I had to do it the first time when I sort of sealed it up and then it wasn't quite sealed and I had to undo it to do that maintenance. And that's a big problem for me, really, because it makes me worry about taking this out, because I think, well, if the gears break again, I've got to prise all that off, and then I've got to get the sealant out and do all that again. So in terms of maintenance, that's not good, and it's sort of a bit of a fundamental problem, because this is designed to be very much off-road, sort of being four-wheel drive and chunky tyres. And yet off-road has got bits and bobs and grit and everything that is going to get in the gears. And also I would say I think this spur gear isn't particularly strong regardless of that. So yeah, there's a bit of a weakness with this, and I think really the gearbox isn't up to a brushless system or the chunky tyres. Okay, and while we're talking about things that aren't so good on this, that nut under there is how you adjust the clutch, and it's very difficult to get to unless you take all this off, which is a right pain in the neck. Also, when I was doing those jumps, I did break, I can't remember which one of these suspension arms. I mean, you can't criticise it too much for that, because I think a lot of things will break doing fairly big jumps like that, but yeah, it's not the toughest thing if that's what you're planning to do with it. So that sort of brings me on to my main problem with this, is that it's a sort of stunt truck design, but because of the problems I've discussed, it's not really strong enough in terms of just the suspension and everything, and obviously that problem with the spur gear and the grip getting in and everything, which makes it sort of not so practical to take off road unless you seal it up, in which case you've got a problem with your maintenance of it. So for me, I think it's one that I wouldn't buy again. Actually, I'll show you one reason I wouldn't buy this again. So now I've got this one, Armour Granite. It sort of makes this one a little bit redundant, because this is better in everywhere imaginable. So, you know, why would I take this out when I've got this? But worth saying, £330 for the version 3 of these, and what we were saying earlier, about 180 to make this brushless, 190. So cheaper, but for me, worth the extra money to get something much more durable in terms of the, you know, the drivetrain and just everything. But so it's not about this. So it might be good for your younger teenager who doesn't mind having it on brushed power. But say, I think for most people, if you wanted to have something that you were then going to soup up later and make faster, might be worth investing a bit more money in something else. But yeah, if 120 quid is all you've got, I could sort of recommend it with a tube of bathroom sealant to sort out the gears. But I'll just show you a few things that I prefer to this, although I would say these are all a bit dearer. Okay, so back to the Armour Granite just for a second. It's worth saying they do a brushed version of this. This is the BLX brushless version. So there is the Mega version, which is brushed. And as far as I know, with the version 3s, the brushed version is very, very similar to the brushless one. So I think it's all got the same gears. You have to do your own research a bit and just check that that's true. I think on the version 2 you can get the version 2 Megas for I think about £210 at the moment while they've still got stock, but I think there are more differences with the gears and all that. Okay, so the 80s classic Tamiya lunchbox. I do really like this thing. Don't go imagining it's a great big basher truck. If you do enormous jumps and land it on concrete, you'll break it, but blasting around the park on the grass, really good, especially if you upgrade it to brushless like I have done. And also it's worth saying, compared with the Bugsta, it's got very sealed in gears. I think it's the most sealed in of anything that I've got, because the motor's all attached to the same bit there with the gearbox. So I'll run this on the beach and the sand doesn't find its way in. So although it's incredibly basic, say it's pretty reliable unless you're ridiculous with it. So yeah, this is definitely a favourite of mine. Okay, so Tamiya DTO2, you can't buy one exactly like this off the shelf, but yeah, nice sealed gearbox. You can get some grit in the dog bones there, but for me, much more enjoyable, just two-wheel drive, very easy to fix. A few weaknesses, but you can sort of overcome most of those. So yeah, for me, I would drive this more than the Bugsta. Also Tamiya DTO3, I think these are a really good way to get into the hobby, because you have to build it from a kit, and so you'll know how to mend it if it goes wrong. But like I say, none of those were £119 all in. So really what I'm saying is this might be right for you. You've got to bear in mind what I've been saying about the gears and everything. For me personally, I'd rather spend a bit more money and get something more durable and quicker. But anyway, that's my review of the FTX Bugsta. Thanks ever so much for watching. I'll see you next time.